I want to tell you a story about one of my clients who had a 20 day, and they probably did a little bit too much on the 20 day. And I'll tell you this, if you feel like you need to let loose on a 20 day, you're probably being too restrictive during the rest of the 80. And we talk about cheat days and all that, and I don't even like the word cheat days because it does seem like you're doing something that you're not supposed to. Sometimes that inner rebel really rears its head and you want to push back in some ways, right? But it also means that you're, in a way, cheating yourself, right? But forget about that point. That if you have to have a cheat day because for mental reasons it's good. Like, I think there's value to having a day where you're maybe having a diet vacation of sorts where you're not on the plan 100% because you want to live a little, you don't want to be the outsider, you want to you be social, all of those things. I understand that, and I think there's a very much a mental argument for that, meaning that it's good for your mental health. Where it comes to your physical, I think you might even see faster results if you didn't do that. But if you feel like it's too restrictive, then you're going to need it, right? So there's that sort of catch-22. And for that reason, I think you need to have it all the time. This is why I say that you have to live 80-20, because you need to live your life. And 80-20 means like 6 out of the 30 days of the month, you're not going to be 100% onto your plan. Other 24 days, sure, you're doing good, right? But where it comes to this particular situation, this client let loose a little bit, and they said, yesterday was a bad day. It was my 20 day, which I fully accept. I said, out of curiosity, can you just go back and track what you had yesterday? And then the client was a little bit worried, like a little bit, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to remember. They tracked, and it looked like they were about 2,000 calories over their level, their balance, which would mean that they would have to spend the next 10 days at an additional 200 calories lower than they would be normally to get even from that 20 day. So it's possible that that 20 day can override the success you've had. And that's because it's too much. Now, if you want to have a little bit more room on that 20 day, I think what you do is maybe knock 100, 150 calories off of those other days of the week so that you can have that sort of buffer room when you do go over. That way, in the end of the week, it sort of balances itself out. It would be perfectly fine if, for example, for 5 days you ate in a calorie deficit, you were 2,000 calories over the next day, and the day after that you didn't eat anything and evened it out. But I would never recommend that. This is just an illustrative example. This is a purpose to show you that it can balance out. What I'd rather have is this sort of weekly thing where you maybe bank 100, 150 calories below your target every day, so that on that day, if you went over by 1,500 calories, is not so much. On the other side of this, I don't think you ever want to be that far over. So you want to do your best to be selective about what you're being 20 about. It shouldn't be like a free-for-all, because again, if you feel like you need it, you might be too restrictive. But I think there's a center middle ground here. Maybe you only go over by 1,000, 1,200. Again, you don't have to be too restricted on your 20 day, but you got to be pragmatic. You got to be proactive. You got to remember that tomorrow you go back to your plan. So if you want to be frustrated with yourself, go through this cycle of being too restrictive, just absolutely exploding on that 20 day, and then going back to being too restrictive in some way. It's a cycle that you'll never see results, and you feel like you're losing out on all this stuff, even though you're doing all the right things. In the end, the calorie balance is going to matter. So how you get there doesn't matter as much. Like if you can play with the numbers in some way, as long as by the end of that week you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to see results. And it's going to be helpful to have that day off, that 20 day where you're maybe resetting your mind, you're not feeling so restrictive. I think there's value to that. But at the end of the day, it can't be a free-for-all, because that's going to create this scenario where you might cycle through it. And not a lot of people do. So let's be a little bit more pragmatic. Let's look at this 20 and remember that there's still the other 80% of it that comes along, and you do need to return back to that. So for you to be too restrictive or too lenient, both things are going to have a little bit of trouble for your goal.